that, we have the whole team of ALBA-TCP, and I am taking his place to moderate the debate. We will have an intervention from the Secretary during the meeting. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone for attending this meeting today. It is the 8th meeting that we have within the framework of the United Nations. We know that we are going through a very challenging time, a very complex time, but precisely to face this situation, to face these circumstances, we have created this organization that is to defend independence, sovereignty, self-determination, and the identity of the countries of the alliance in the face of the attempts of political and digital domination. Today, we are going to look at the draft declaration. I understand that it has already been circulated. You already have the declaration, and we should approve that declaration at the end of the meeting. Before starting with the different interventions, I would like to ask you to be brief in your interventions, about 5 minutes per person. We're going to start. I am going to start with the speech as the representative of Venezuela. Dear foreign ministers, fraternal greetings on behalf of the re-elected President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, and the brave people of Venezuela that continues to be undefeated in the defense of the right to build a new social order and to live in peace and stability. Through you, I extend a welcome to the brothers and sisters peoples of the Caribbean and Latin America in this 24th meeting of the Political Council of our beloved Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, ALBA-TCP. Special greetings to the honorable guests joining us today. We have the Prime Minister, we're waiting for the Prime Minister of Palestine. He should join us shortly. We thank the Executive Secretary of ALBA-TCP for the organization of this encounter, which is a valuable opportunity to reflect upon the achievements of our alliance, and also to point out the challenges that we are facing within an international system that takes giant steps for the necessary transformation. We are close to the 20th anniversary of our alliance, a project that wants to be the space to materialize the thoughts of our forefathers, a project of unity of nations born in the resistance against neoliberalism and imperialist policies slaving our peoples. This is a time to reaffirm our sovereign vocation, our solidarity, and our capacity to face together the threats and aggressions that today persist. This region is still as an area of dispute between two historical projects: the one for emancipation, independence, and shared happiness, and the one for imperialist oppression promoted by the United States. Venezuela and all of our countries are the epicenter of this battle. From there, the common and tireless aggression that we suffer from the empire and the satellite governments attacking our models, our governments and our economies, trying to destroy the stability of our states and to impose the dominance of capital. This imperialist attack that we suffer today is not a new phenomenon. Our peoples have resisted these aggressions for 500 years. As the Spanish metropolis wanted to kill our identity and our culture, nowadays American imperialism pursues the same objectives. Our forefathers 200 years ago revitalized that freedom vocation and they were facing the predator capitalism using fascist practices. Although the old Spain failed in that fascist project, modern imperialism continues to try to bend our will of emancipation to take us back to the times of slavery. ALBA represents the continuation of this historical resistance. It is a space in which we should materialize the dream of continental unity with solidarity and social content, which vindicates our independentist struggles. This alliance has shown to be competent to breach the social gap imposed by imperialism. Fascism has re-emerged as a threat to the sovereignty of our nations, to our self-determination and the well-being of our peoples. As in the past, it is still instrumentalizing supremacist violence to divide, to loot the peoples of the global south, and in this case, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba, destroy the economic and social achievements conquered by the revolutionary governments. In the midst of this battle, from Venezuela, we have called upon the creation of an anti-fascist international movement as a space of the global south that would enable us to articulate a common strategy in the popular struggles and other efforts to stop the progress of imperialism in all its forms. The World Congress Against Fascism, Neo-Fascism, and other similar expressions recently took place and was organized by our Bolivarian government and was framed within the effort to drive a global resistance with the main objective to consolidate this new international alliance integrated by social movements, political parties, intellectuals, and other popular organizations, in order to face the renewed expressions of hatred and pretensions of dominance that emerged as a product of the structural crisis of American capitalism. Legitimate representatives of over 95 countries approved in Caracas on the 11th and 12th of September the creation of the Great Anti-Fascist International Movement, as a movement that will unite the voices and actions against this scourge that threatens the very existence of humanity. In the midst of these threats, we also need to condemn the brutal aggression to the Palestinian people by Israel. As the Spanish Empire tried to exterminate our indigenous peoples 500 years ago, today Israel wants to exterminate the Palestinian people and the culture of fraternity and love, which has contributed so much to humankind. Venezuela and each of the countries integrating ALBA have condemned these atrocious crimes and have demanded to the United Nations to fulfill the resolutions approved by the different bodies and to comply with the principles of the United Nations Charter. Today we face one of the greatest challenges. The United Nations need to be firm in the face of Israeli arrogance, or they will be accomplices in this crime. Today, more than ever, we demand the UN to not be a part of the problem, but to take upon its historical responsibility in the defense of the Palestinian people and the peoples of the world. We would like to thank ALBA and the governments here for all their solidarity with the Bolivarian revolution throughout the years of struggle and the fight for peace, independence, and self-determination. Our cause is the same cause of Bolivia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Honduras. It is the cause of the rebellious Caribbean, of Palestine, of the defense of life itself. This political council of ALBA-TCP joins us at a moment of reemergence of our alliance, because we're in the midst of the systematic blockade and economic persecution, as well as financial, against our peoples, but we're going towards a new path of cooperation. The implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the unitary response toward the unilateral coercive measures imposed on Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela are testimony of our determination to overcome these obstacles. We will not only resist, we are building with a strategic vision a new stage of cooperation that will enable us to move forward in economic, agricultural, and financial development. The creation of the Agency for Development Cooperation of ALBA-TCP will enable us to create multilateral initiatives to appoint resources for the integral development of our peoples, along with the Caribbean, but also our allied countries. In the creation of Agro-ALBA would be key to achieve food self-sufficiency and the mitigation of risks created by climate change in our region. These actions prepare us to face with resilience and sustainability the challenges imposed by the risks of natural disasters, prioritizing their mitigation, the mitigation of their impacts in our countries. Our actions are also toward the Global South. We see with optimism this relationship between ALBA and BRICS. This will empower our capabilities and will help us progress towards a multipolar world in which the peoples of the South will thrive in equality and justice. Finally, I would like to reaffirm our commitment with the original spirit of ALBA as a project of love, solidarity, and social justice that reaches the most humble peoples. We are still at the forefront of the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean. Today, ALBA reemerges as an alternative to fascism, to hatred, and to imperialist destruction. We will continue together in the battle for the happiness of our peoples. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear brothers and sisters.
Our secretary is going to take the floor in order to inform us, to update us on the progress made. But I would like to start by giving the floor I would like to start by giving the floor to the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Cuba, Bruno Rodriguez. You have the floor, sir.
Estimado hermano Iván Gil, canciller de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, estimados ministros, jefes de delegación.
Dear ministers, members of delegation, of the member of ALBA-TCP, ALBA Secretary General Alba Arias.
The contradictions generated by the international economic and political order are a challenge for international law. The manipulation and deceits are tools that are accepted every single day and used by the powerful to ascend to government positions. Shamelessly, policies are being implemented aimed at wrecking the social advances achieved by the people's struggle. Attempts are made to impose political decisions that respond to the interests of a power or large transnational corporations. They attempt against the sovereign will of our peoples. The regional oligarchies resort to apparently banished policies such as coup d'etat, with the agreements of the governments of the U.S. Suffice it to recall the recent attempts in Bolivia and the denunciations of the governments of Honduras and Colombia and the crude incitements to the Venezuelan armed forces to violate their constitution. None of our nations is exempt from being the victim of social destabilization plans and attempts to overthrow legitimate governments. In the complex international context, political and economic pressures against our countries have continued to intensify. Today, we see with concern how one of the member countries of this alliance is being attacked with marked belligerence. Venezuela is once again facing the economic, political, and media arsenal of imperialism and extremism aimed at dynamiting its economic and social development process and undermining its sovereignty. We reiterate our strongest support to the government of President Nicolás Maduro Moros and to the civil-military union of its people. It is up to Venezuelans to settle their own affairs free from external interference. Our brothers in Nicaragua are also the target of unjust unilateral coercive measures and meddling campaigns by the United States government. Cuba is suffering the most brutal, permanent, and continuous aggression against its economy and its people. The U.S. government maintains our country on the unilateral and arbitrary lists of states that allegedly sponsor terrorism, an arbitrary and infamous qualification that reinforces the economic and financial siege against the island and aggravates the damage caused to the Cuban people for 65 years. Distinguished colleagues and friends, I send a strong embrace and all of our solidarity to our Caribbean brothers and sisters who continue to work tirelessly in the recovery of their countries after the passage of the powerful Hurricane Beryl. The Caribbean community has and will always have a friend, a sister, and a brother in Cuba who accompanies them in their right to receive fair, special, and differentiated treatment and in their legitimate claim for reparations and compensation for the horrors of slavery and colonialism. We cannot remain indifferent to the genocide against the Palestinian people. We demand a world mobilization. Cuba demands a comprehensive, just, and lasting solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on the creation of two states that would allow the Palestinian people to exercise their right to self-determination and to have an independent and sovereign state within the pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, and with the guarantees of the return of refugees. Our country supports the fact that the United Nations General Assembly takes a determined and immediate action to decide once and for all the full membership of the State of Palestine to the United Nations Organization. I reiterate the cordial invitation extended by President Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez to the 11th Extraordinary Summit of ALBA-TCP to be commemorated in Havana on December 14th, the 20th anniversary of the founding of this emancipating and unitary alliance. I ratify the affection of the Cuban people and government and our unwavering commitment to unity, peace, and anti-imperialist struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Bruno from Cuba. And now I give the floor to the Sister Excellency Serinda Sosa, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Plurinational State of Bolivia. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Brother Foreign Minister of Venezuela. I greet my brothers and sisters, foreign ministers of ALBA-TCP, ministers. The world and our peoples are confronting serious challenges given the multifaceted crisis of the world. The hegemonic powers and imperialism are threatening our unity, such as ALBA and ALBA-TCP, and the proclamation of ALBA of Latin America and the Caribbean. Vis-à-vis these challenges, we need to declare Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace. Our alliance has always been the pillar of the greater changes and revolutions in the world, and we should pursue this path. Our commitment in the defense of sovereignty, of non-intervention in our internal affairs, and neocolonialism, this struggle should remain. In this context, we reaffirm our condemnation to the unfair economic, commercial, financial blockade imposed on the sister nation of Cuba by the United States. We should therefore demand that once and for all, the immediate lifting of so much suffering and scourge that have affected our sisterly Cuba. Likewise, the revolutionary and courageous people of Cuba should be excluded from the unilateral list of countries sponsoring terrorism. This unfair measure is affecting its economy, preventing its full development. We also demand the stop of unilateral coercive measures imposed on the peoples of Nicaragua and Venezuela. These actions violate the fundamental principles of the UN Charter and international law. Also, we unite to the voices of revolutionary countries suffering the unilateral coercive measures that violate the dignity and the rights of free peoples of the world. We convey our solidarity with Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. On this occasion, I would like to also convey my strong support to the Venezuelan people and its president, Nicolás Maduro, vis-à-vis the constant bullying and the thought of destabilization by the U.S., the European Union, and other foreign interests. Brothers and sisters, we also ratify strongly our total support and accompaniment to the Palestinian people, and we denounce the genocide of occupying power, Israel. We condemn the occupation and violence against one of other human rights of the Palestinian people. It's only through the respect of international law and the recognition of the Palestinian right to sovereignty, independence, that we could attain a fair and lasting peace in that region. The most affected are women, children, and the elderly. In the 21st century, we need to recognize the importance of new technologies, and we need to use them in favor of development and innovation. However, we are mindful that these instruments can be also used to attack, harm, and destabilize democratic governments through the dissemination of fake news that generate uncertainty among the population. From ALBA-TCP, we have to work to have alternative media and means to have better informed societies, more equitable and better prepared to face the challenges of the digital era. From Bolivia, we want to stress the importance of gender equality in foreign policy, inclusion of women, and decolonization approach. They will contribute to the construction of a fairer world, better represented and more equitable. A foreign policy from the perspective of decolonization commit us to promote equality more and more in all the decision-making scene, so we reflect our diversity and the strength of our peoples. I would like to use this opportunity of this meeting of our alliance to inform about the latest tensions in our country. We are facing a new breaking of the institutional government because of actions promoted by former President Evo Morales. This attempt against the government of our President Arce. Vis-à-vis these demonstrations, our government has called for dialogue. However, the response has always been negative and violent by groupings following Evo Morales. We would like to inform you about this situation, and we ratify the will of our government to settle the demands of these mobilizations in a peaceful manner and within the framework of the respect of human rights of all Bolivians. Over the last month, as long as other members of our alliance have suffered coup d'etat attempts attempting to destabilize and to topple the democratically elected government. We convey our solidarities and we accompany all of you in this struggle. Our sovereignty are under threat by geopolitical threats that are trying to take hold of our natural resources. We reaffirm, therefore, that only united and by respecting our differences and defending the sovereignty of our peoples and promoting justice in all its forms, we can then build a future, the future that our peoples and countries deserve. Let's move forward with this conviction and the certainty that we are able to transform our region in a world of peace to benefit the new generations and future generations to come. There is no other path. As ALBA-TCP, we should remain united and stronger to face all the threats that we are facing and also to strengthen mutual assistance. There are different levels of resources among our nations. However, there are instruments that should work better within the organization. But we are characterized by solidarity, complementarity, reciprocity, which are key elements characterizing ALBA-TCP. And we need to resort to these instruments. So today, we walk hand in hand and embrace each other now that we need your solidarity more than ever. And Cuba is my homeland, an example of solidarity. When I speak about Cuba, I speak about my homeland. It is a people I love, and Cuba needs ALBA. And we need to extend not only our hands, but two hands to help our brothers and sisters in Cuba. And I hope that the resolutions that we attain today, they should be appropriate to the needs that we have today in the political, social, economic, and cultural fields. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Celinda Sosa. I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Valderac Janšek, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Nicaragua. You have the floor. Thank you, comrades. Ivan Gil, Foreign Minister of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Jorge Arreaza, Executive Secretary of ALBA. Brothers and sisters, ministers present here today. Revolutionary greetings and affection from our President, Commander Daniel Ortega Saavedra, and our sister, the Vice President, Rosario Murillo Zambrano. Our recognition and gratitude to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for its continuous leadership in our Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of our America. The Venezuela of Bolivar, of Chavez, of our brother, constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, who, together with heroic people, still facing and winning all of the aggression against all of the aggressions and destabilizations from the imperialists. Our greetings to the always fighting in solidarity sister Republic of Cuba, the Cuba of Fidel, of Raúl, of Díaz-Canel, and the heroic and victorious Cuban people. Our fraternal greetings to the brothers and sisters of the Caribbean, Grenada, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and to the always combative Bolivia. Brothers and sisters, humankind is at a critical time. We are giving birth to a new history, to a new global order that is more fair, more collective, and more full of solidarity. As the emergence of this new world and multipolar, this is a very painful and it's very hard for humanity. At this time, the free, dignified, and sovereign peoples of the world are facing new and old ways of aggression. The canyons and weapons of the past are reborn in new forms of aggression, so-called sanctions. These are the same military interventions and the same interference perpetuated by the Yankee Empire in the 19th and the 20th century against dignified peoples fighting for sovereignty and self-determination, and against peoples that continue to defend their paths, their culture, their projects, and models of life. Our militant solidarity with the sister republic, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, a noble people. The only sin it has had is to have a dignified voice and to share unconditionally with the poorest what God Almighty has given them by nature. A people and a revolution committed to fighting and to defending the just causes in our region and the world. A revolution that showed to the world a clear popular victory in the face of the destabilizing collusion of the empire and their allies at the north. Since when dignified and victorious peoples need to present before other authorities papers or records that certify this popular victory? They need to learn that revolutions only account to their people, and the Venezuelan people has been victorious in this electoral battle in the face of the people and the world. Our embrace to the sister Republic of Cuba, which has faced for over 6 decades the barbarism of the blockade, the imperial arrogance that wants to design, appointed as one of the countries sponsoring terrorism when it has promoted peace and peaceful understanding, and the huge love and solidarity is recognized for the peoples all around the world. The brothers from the Caribbean who were born fighting when they were persecuted and taken from their own peoples, from the communities in Africa coming to these lands. Attacked and threatened by financial measures, they have kept their strength in ALBA, and in these difficult conditions, this is a testimony of their spirit of struggle and dignity that needs to be recognized. Before all these threats, the existence of the Bolivarian Alliance is still an alliance to safeguard peace and to raise loud and clear the voice and the dignity of our America and the Caribbean. Our Nicaragua, blessed and always free, the Nicaragua of Sandino, the Nicaragua of the Sandinist Revolution, reaffirms its commitment with just causes and with the struggle against imperial imposition. We reaffirm our militant solidarity with the cause of the Palestinian people, which still struggles and fights for its independence, self-determination, and national dignity. Nicaraguans have inherited from our forefathers a history of struggle. We were born as a country fighting for our independence and self-determination, and we're still faithful to this fight for a more just world. We reaffirm today that the dark forces of Earth have no rights over our processes, paths of light, life, and truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to give the floor to His Excellency Everett Paul Chatgreen, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Agriculture, Commerce, and Affairs of Barbuda. Antigua Barbuda, you have the floor.
Señor compañero canciller.
Thank you, Foreign Minister, Head of Delegations, and colleagues. Good morning to you all.
To engage with my colleague members of this important solidarity group of our region. December this year will mark 20 years of ALBA. And I want to thank our founding fathers, the militant visionaries who carried the flag for the continued liberation of our Americas. I refer specifically to Commanders Fidel Castro Ruz and Hugo Rafael Chavez Frias. As a manifestation of a new and progressive regional integration alliance in 2004, ALBA has emerged as a strong grouping of countries providing meaningful support and solidarity in a very challenging global environment. Antigua and Barbuda reiterate our congratulations to President Nicolas Maduro on his victory at the recently held elections. The people of the historic, heroic Bolivarian Republic came out in their numbers to exercise their constitutional rights by giving President Maduro a vote of confidence to continue the Chavez Revolution, which was started in 1998. They have given the government a mandate to continue with the economic recovery program designed to improve the lives of citizens and to further enhance the integration of Latin America and the Caribbean. Colleagues, critical to the building of a strong ALBA is the need for all of us, including our national coordinators, to play a more meaningful and proactive role in the implementation of plans and strategies. Equally important is ensuring a more active engagement with the youth of our region. Antigua and Barbuda remains committed to the plans established for the implementation of the ALBA-TCP Development Cooperation Agency, designed to enhance our developmental initiatives for members of this organization. It's against that backdrop that my country calls for the exclusion of Cuba from the list of countries that allegedly sponsor international terrorism. This unilateral, unfair classification has caused untold negative challenges for the ordinary people of Cuba in areas of international trade and in basic financial transactions. In addition, we reject the unjust embargo placed on Cuba by the U.S. This horrific act is causing severe and untold suffering to the ordinary people of Cuba and is a violation of human rights. It is time for the rest of the 187 countries who vote against the embargo at the UN General Assembly every year to find new ways of sending a message of disappointment and disagreement against this act that severely hampers the socio-economic reforms in Cuba. We also strongly condemn the U.S. imposition of unilateral measures on the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Republic of Nicaragua, especially in these trying economic times. We stand in solidarity with the plurinational state of Bolivia and Honduras against destabilizing attempts against the country's efforts to promote peace, democracy, and the rule of law. As members of the ALBA Alliance, we continue to find ways of ensuring that the sovereignty of countries and the rule of law and the principles of the Charter of the UN are constantly adhered to and followed. Antigua and Barbuda remains committed to ensuring that our region remains a zone of peace through the effective maintenance of peace, security, and stability in our thrust for an effective integration process. We strongly condemn any attempt by any country to interfere in the internal affairs of Latin American and Caribbean countries to cause destabilization or to impose policies contrary to the will of our nations. Colleagues, this Bolivarian alliance, of which we are all proud members, can only achieve optimum social economic well-being of our people if we work closely together in mutual solidarity. In this regard, Antigua and Barbuda remains committed to the principles of respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in the internal affairs of states. These are values that underpin our relationship with friendly countries. The challenges facing our region are vast and diverse. Climate change remains an existential threat to the countries of the world, creating tremendous hardships for poor and vulnerable countries. Currently, our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and Grenadines and Grenada need long-term infrastructure support and financing to address the damages inflicted by Hurricane Beryl in July of this year. As ALBA members, we must continue to work collectively and to dialogue to ensure we achieve not only climate justice, but also reparatory justice for the crime against humanity committed during chattel slavery and genocide committed against indigenous people of our region. Antigua and Barbuda looks forward for the continued support of ALBA members in the implementation of the Antigua-Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, the ABAS, over the next 10 years, which will be a critical period for all SIDS countries. We welcome your support for the establishment of a SIDS Center of Excellence in Antigua and Barbuda, which will include a SIDS Data Hub, a technology and innovation mechanism, and an island investment forum. Additionally, because of our vulnerability, Antigua and Barbuda endorses the recently completed Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, the MVI, as a vital tool to help small nations gain access to concessional financing that we need to survive this climate catastrophe, to improve our long-term national planning, service our debts, and sign up to insurance and compensation schemes that may be our last hope when waters rise. In conclusion, colleagues, Antigua and Barbuda confirms today our support for the declaration of the ALBA-TCP 24th Political Council held here on the margins of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ministro.
Thank you very much, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Antigua and Barbuda. I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Frederick Stephenson, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade and Consumption of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, distinguished representatives. At the outset, I express sincerest appreciation to His Excellency Van Gil Pinto, the Foreign Minister of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, for the arrangements of today's very important deliberations. As the new Foreign Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I also extend warm solidarity greetings to colleagues, foreign ministers, and further reaffirm St. Vincent and the Grenadines' unwavering commitment to continue solidifying and advancing the ideals principles and purpose of the ALBA-TCP. In this context, and against the backdrop of the plethora of complex global challenges, particularly those confronting our alliance, permit me to offer the following reflections as we forge ahead towards the commemoration of our 20th anniversary on December 14 this year. As a background, almost 20 years ago, ALBA-TCP was created based on solidarity and mutual respect among its members and grounded on the sacrosanct principles of the United Nations Charter. ALBA, founded as an alternative force of Latin America and the Caribbean unity and integration, was juxtaposed against the free trade area of the Americas, the FTAA, a hemispheric wide free trade zone modeled on the neoliberal precepts of deregulation and free market capitalism. ALBA eventually metamorphosed into the alliance to better reflect the ethos of our integration mechanism and the principles of solidarity, mutual respect, and support. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, enshrined in our alliance is the spirit of unity as exposed in Simón Bolívar's 1815 letter of Jamaica, and the ideals of solidarity and resistance of José Martí's Our America of 1891. Indeed, the precepts of our great liberators were manifested through our founding fathers, Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez, who in their infinite wisdom created our alliance. In the joint declaration that established ALBA, our leaders asserted, and I quote, that the cardinal principle that shall guide ALBA is the greatest sense of solidarity between the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean. Unquestionably, the creation of ALBA-TCP was not happenstance. Today, the ideals and spirit of our alliance are alive and well. They are self-evident in our visionary leaders who are guided by the principles which birthed our alliance. These principles, grounded in unity, complementarity, solidarity, the sanctity of national sovereignty, respect for international law, peace, dialogue, and compromise for the preservation of humanity, prosperity, and development are part of our DNA. They are our raison d'etre. The journey, advances, and setbacks. Since the creation of our alliance, we have chalked up significant achievements, but we have also called upon to consistently demonstrate our relevance and address global phenomena arising from human failing and or folly, including the adverse effects of climate change, the continued quest for hegemony by powerful states that flagrantly violate international law, the imposition of illegal unilateral coercive measures, economic blockades, blacklistings, the weaponization of trade and finance, and health hazards such as COVID-19. Indeed, there have been setbacks, but our alliance continues to advance, steeped in the bedrock principles of international law, and with the determination of our leaders to continue to pursue our common development objectives and ideals for the ennoblement of our peoples. Navigating ALBA-TCP in today's interwoven world of multifaceted issues and contradictions have become ever more difficult. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, as we deepen our integration and close ranks, we must remain resolute in confronting the threats against the sovereignty and political independence of members of our alliance by those forces which perpetually flout international law, evidenced by the imposition of unilateral coercive measures on our sister nations, Venezuela and Nicaragua, a semblance of the anachronistic illegal economic blockade imposed against Cuba. We ought to reject always and categorically all unilateral coercive measures and vehemently call for the removal of Cuba from the so-called state list of state sponsors of terrorism. Our ALBA must remain in the vanguard in championing a just multipolar international system. Along this line, St. Vincent and the Grenadines expresses its appreciation for the solidarity and continued support of our alliance on the issue of reparations for slavery and native genocide. This quest for just restitution from those who illegally and immorally benefited from the organized system of chattel slavery is a noise in our blood and an echo in our bones. Likewise, we urge our alliance to exert all efforts to accelerate support for the sister nation of Palestine, which continues its permanent struggle against imperialistic forces. No stone must be left unturned in Palestine's quest for peace, justice, and the sustainable development of its people. The exigencies of our time compel us to do such. I now make a few recommendations for institutional strengthening and the way forward. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, finally, as we draw closer to our year-end celebrations, I take this opportunity to put forward the following recommendations in keeping with the ALBA-TCP 2030 development agenda. I state here and now the need to strengthen the institutional and organizational framework of our alliance by ensuring that the established structures and agencies are robust to face the prevailing winds of our time. This includes bolstering the ALBA Bank, as well as the Political and Economic Council, by ensuring that there is high-level attendance at the meetings of both councils, and that there is consistency, regularity, and continuity in representation. The need to continue to forge stronger and establish formal relations with other regional groups such as CELAC, BRICS, CARICOM, Mercosur, ASEAN, and to seek alliance with countries such as Brazil, China, South Africa, India, and Russia. The importance of accelerating our work in priority areas and consolidate our alliance on a social, political, and economic front. In conclusion, Excellencies, distinguished representatives, if there was ever a time for our alliance to demonstrate great unity and resolve, the time is now. A time to safeguard the principles of international law and multilateralism, regenerate and secure our relevance. In recommitting to exercise our rights as independent sovereign nations under the banner of ALBA-TCP, let us get in high gear to attend our contemporary challenges. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we commit to ALBA-TCP. I thank you.
Muchas gracias, Ministro.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Silver Aaron, Ambassador, Extraordinary Plenipotentiary, and Permanent Representative of the Commonwealth of Dominica in the UN. You have the floor, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Now I'm going to shift to English. Before, however, I'd like to say I'm going to talk about the period between 2008 and 2018, when I was the first national coordinator of Anglophone countries, English-speaking countries. But we're the first country of the Eastern Caribbean region of English-speaking countries that joined ALBA-TCP. It was a different moment in our history. It was harder for small countries, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to join ALBA. We were very much scared and fearful vis-à-vis the powers of our region. The psychology at the time was also different. And I would like to remember those days so we can contribute to this dialogue of today. I also remember when I was one of the first members of this grouping, the first in speaking English, of an English-speaking country, and also as a member of the ALBA Bank. Francisco Arias Cárdenas told us we are ready to begin. So now I'm going to shift to English.
Proper procedure. Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman of our session, the People's Power Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Mr. Ivan Eduardo Gil Pinto. Let me salute also the entire head table, our good friend Raul Licauzi, who for a long time was the CEO of Air Eastern Caribbean, linking our countries with Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador, Honduras in the most effective way, and was very responsible for the very tight connections that we have today. I salute also Ms. Edith Peraza and my good colleague Joaquin Perez, your good ambassador who fights daily in New York, not an easy place for Venezuela and the people of Venezuela. Thank you very much for that. Let me do a personal history as I began. Not just for entertainment, but for, I believe, stressing something I think it would be a good moment to stress. So I became the first national coordinator of ALBA among the English-speaking countries. When Dominica joined, present were Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Bolivia. We joined before Honduras. We welcome Honduras into ALBA. And when there was a threat against Honduras joining ALBA, and eventually the threat was carried out, that membership in ALBA would cause trouble. And I was political coordinator, national coordinator, when the government was removed. I participated with others in discussions to return the constitutional order, discussions in Nicaragua, and then in Washington, D.C. at the UAS. Let me go back, though, a little earlier. I said it, but I want to stress that when Dominica joined ALBA, it was following a declaration by 3 Eastern Caribbean states to join ALBA: Antigua and Barbuda under Baldwin Spencer, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines under Comrade Ralph Gonzalez. And the heat was elevated. That is December 2007. And in 2008, February, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, whose greetings I bring to you, joined ALBA. And holy hell broke out in the Caribbean. Propaganda on all regional talk radio. The heat was so elevated that the courageous Ralph Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Baldwin Spencer held back and didn't join. And Roosevelt Skerrit looked like he was someone who did not listen to his people. And jurists in the Caribbean brought a claim against Roosevelt Skerrit that he was violating CARICOM, the foundational Treaty of CARICOM, Treaty of Chaguaramas, which requires coordination of foreign affairs. And that was one of the most difficult periods of Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. And amidst that claim, at the end of February, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit did a national address dedicated to one topic: Hugo Chavez and ALBA. And that speech has become known as "There is no devil in ALBA." And that speech helped to calm, but did not quite calm, the fury in the region. Please note that part of the difficulty was that the other 2 Eastern Caribbean countries that had declared, and it's a public declaration alongside Hugo Chavez, that they would join ALBA, had stepped back. In March 3rd, I was appointed national coordinator of ALBA. And I went on the radio in Dominica and consistently spoke about our links to Latin America, because that was part of the problem. The English-speaking region has been made to feel separate from the Spanish-speaking. And the Spanish-speaking has been positioned as dictatorial, anti-Western, and other things. And that was part of the problem. So my first position was to speak to the people of Dominica on these connections. and especially to remind, from my point of view, especially to remind the people of Dominica that the people of Latin America had not enslaved us. But what really turned the tide was that the friendship and cooperation between ALBA and Dominica was not abstract, was not big talk, was not long words, was not abstractions. It was practical, concrete, and visible to the people. And the people of Dominica, this point of context is also important. This is a time when Dominica is suffering deep economic crisis because our main product, banana, which accounted for 70% of our export, had disappeared under the pressure of legal challenges by the United States federal government in association with producers of banana, Dole and Chiquita. And in came, I must recognize, the state of Venezuela, as well as the ALBA, which was then an alternative, was not yet alliance. And the concrete and practical cooperation with Dominica in areas of hydrocarbons, in areas of education, those concrete manifestations of brotherhood, of solidarity, turned the tide for the people of Dominica. And in 2009, when Hugo Chavez would visit Dominica, people would spontaneously go out and call him Papa Chavez. Nobody asked. We didn't ask anybody to do that. The people did it. And in 2010, I don't have my notes before me, but in 2010, if I recall well, the 3 countries joined ALBA. Honduras joined separately. I remember going to Tegucigalpa to welcome Honduras in. But 3 countries joined. They were Antigua Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Ecuador. And at that meeting, I remember President Chavez saying, and he did not pronounce Roosevelt Skerrit, his name well, he would say scary. Now, if you say scary, scary means afraid or, fearsome, causes fear. And he said at that moment, scary was first. Now, this is not just congratulating Scary to anybody or going down memory lane. So let me just round up. Here's what I want to say. Here is the purpose of what I want to say. I believe the strength of ALBA is creativity. The creativity of having trouble supplying petroleum hydrocarbons as a member of a cartel and formulating a way of providing to the Caribbean. I don't have to give the details. Hydrocarbons that does not create trouble for your membership in the cartel, but does great service to the people of the Caribbean. So, my dear friends, in my respectful view, born out of 10 years of experience in every level of ALBA, I have attended technical, Mesa technical, shouldn't be tables, but, you know, literally. I have attended ministerial meetings, political coordination meetings. I have been in ALBA, I have been in Petro Caribbean. Creativity. And I will mention one more controversy and close up there. There was always a controversy as to whether ALBA would be an international global organization with a wide focus on anybody else. Palestine, I love my Palestinian brothers, and anybody else. That was always a controversy when we joined and afterwards. So, my friends, creativity. We have practical, concrete. We do have abstract problems too. We have problems of sovereignty. We have problems of, you know, we have those. But my respectful view, especially in those instances with those individuals from Chavez to Raul to Daniel, who's been a long friend of the Caribbean since in the days of Grenada, and throughout. Creativity, creative ways in solving the practical, daily, technical, and other problems of our people. And I have spoken too long. I apologize. I wish to close here, but to remind everybody that my experience of those 10 years in ALBA was an experience of a grassroots movement that made a real grassroots difference in the lives of grassroots people in a very focused way. And I wish that we can continue to do that and multiply that.
Gracias.
That's the best I can do.
Gracias, embajador.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Hassan Hadid, Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary of Grenada. And we only have 8 minutes before we close the room, and we still need to close with the statement of the Executive Secretary, Jorge Arreaza. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I take it protocol has been already established. Distinguished Excellencies, I would like to express Grenada's gratitude to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for graciously hosting our annual ALBA-TCP meeting. At the outset, on behalf of the government of Grenada, I wish to express our gratitude to the ALBA countries that have shown by example what it means to support a member of the family in time of need. When the fickle finger of fate seemingly conspires with nature and has tested us particularly with the impact of Hurricane Beryl, which left our twin islands of Carriacou and Petit Martinique in devastation. Your willingness to lend a helping hand during this difficult period speaks volumes about the strength of our regional solidarity and the deep camaraderie that unites us as an alliance. We are meeting during what best can be described as a time of great concern and an inflection point. The global community is confronting a confluence of multi-dimensional crises on various fronts, a crisis to which countries like ours have contributed the least, but which, needless to say, are having a disproportionately severe impact on us. From Grenada's perspective, the theme of this meeting underscores the reality that we are failing to achieve our full potential for development, peace, and security due to the action of others. It is not it is no secret that we smaller nations have had to confront and endure the profound impact of conflicts, climate change, a volatile, unstable economy, pandemics, and a plethora of persistent challenges, while at the same time, Grenada remains committed to upholding the tenets of the UN Charter. We remain resolute to the fundamental attribution of all peoples and states to sovereignty, independence, and the right to freely determine their own domestic and foreign policies. We see more and more a world in which the role of the United Nations in maintaining peace and security and facilitating unhindered development and self-determination is being called into question. We see and hear questions about the applicability of a rule-based order. We too have serious concerns regarding the fairness of the application of international law, principles, and policies. We believe that there should not be one set of rules for one and another for others, one rule for the rich and another for the poor. To the contrary, there should only be one rule, fairness in the application of international law, principles and policies guided by empirical facts. It would be remiss of me not to touch upon the global landscape in which geopolitics continues to swing, from the Russia-Ukraine conflict to the Israeli war on Palestine, to the instability in our sister state of Haiti, to the humanitarian crisis in Sudan. We note with increasing alarm that these areas of conflicts are fanned further by the support of those who do not see peace as a precursor to security and development, as well as the heinous and atrocious acts of violence which have fast become a way of life. Grenada strongly condemns the loss of lives, including of the more than 15,000 children killed in Gaza since October 7th, and the 569 people that have been killed in Lebanon on the 23rd and 24th September, including innocent women and children. We must place on record our condemnation of all acts of premeditated aggression. The very weapons that are supplied in droves to these conflicts areas usually transcends the borders of the vulnerable countries. We believe that nations that engage in the practice of prolonging wars must rethink their decisions not only within the context of their national interest, but also the broader interest and implications for regional and international stability. Notwithstanding our commitment to preserve the Caribbean region as a zone of peace. Grenada believes the citizens of Venezuela have the inherent right to elect their government democratically, free from the use of threats of force, free from external forces shaping the domestic politics, often to the detriment of their rights to democratic governance. To us, our region must continue to remain anchored in the principles of cooperation, peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, non-interference in the internal democratic affairs of states, and the practice of ideological diversity. The antiquated embargo imposed on Cuba represents a profound injustice that highlights the upsides of what economic fairness is not. The discourse regarding Cuba must move beyond a one-dimensional isolationism principles and instead should inflict a nuanced understanding of the challenges of the imposition of such an embargo on the Cuban people. We remain resolute that the most straightforward solution to the Cuban embargo is simply lifting it entirely. Grenada further rejects the U.S. State Department ongoing inclusion of Cuba on the list of state of sponsored terrorism. The designation itself contradicts the fundamental principles of international law, particularly the principles of sovereignty and non-interference, a position that applies to all countries. The removal of this antiquated embargo would not only be to the benefit of millions of our Cuban brothers and sisters, but also a positive economic development for the region and specifically us as a small island states. We can be guided by words of the ancient proverb: vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. As difficult as it may be, there is an exigency to find avenues to address problems at their core. This is not a task that can be accomplished in isolation. Collaboration is crucial across borders, regions, sectors, and people to effectuate changes that are fundamental to the solution. Finally, Excellencies, while we acknowledge our inherited and historical commonalities, it is to the dynamic future of our alliance that we look. Grenada believes that our solidarity should serve as the quintessential glue that binds us together. I thank you.
Muchas gracias, embajador. Quiero transmitir.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now I would like to give the floor to the Executive Secretary, Jorge Arriaza, who from Caracas would give us the balance of the draft declaration, conclusion, and the strategic agenda 2030. You have the floor.
Gracias, Canciller Iván Gil.
Thank you, Foreign Minister. Greetings to the Foreign Minister, especially our new Foreign Minister from Nicaragua and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We want to just thank you for holding this important event in the U.S., in New York. The Political Council of the Alliance of Simon Bolivar is present in the UN. We are not going to have an extended presentation, but we have made the progress with the cooperation agency, the system for risk mitigation to confront natural catastrophes, agro-ALBA, tourist action, the Social Council of ALBA, and you have the declaration that has been discussed by the national coordinators and your foreign ministries to defend independence, free determination, and identity of the alliance vis-à-vis the attempts of social, political, and digital domination. You have there the first item to ratify the defense of the principles and purpose of the Charter of the UN. The second, it opposes the rejection of military bases in our continent and ratify the proclamation of Latin America as a zone of peace. The third, we reject the coup d'etat that have been attempted this year, especially in Venezuela, Colombia, and Honduras. The fourth, we reject the lawfare, the use of justice as a tool, stressing the case of former President or the friend Jorge Glass in Ecuador, and also the need to remove Cuba from the alleged country sponsoring terrorism. Also, we are against the unilateral coercive measures both against Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Eighth, ratify our solidarity with Nicaragua against the aggression. We congratulate the government of Nicolas Maduro for its victory, and we reject the conspiracies that rejected his victory. And ALBA, from day one, we have rejected the genocide against the Palestinian people in the new phase, and we call upon the stop this aggression. And then we call for the creation of the great fascist multinational against fascism, the multinational against fascism, also the way to address the risk of natural disasters, and also paying close attention to the climate crisis in the small island countries in development. And we congratulate Antigua and Barbuda for the holding of this important meeting. And then we convey our solidarity to the Caribbean in a special differentiated treatment, and they need to vindicate the damage of colonization and slavery. And we ratify the 2030 agenda. We need to continue following up this agenda. And then we want to create ALBA Youth, which is part of our strategic agenda. 18th, the cooperation agency is moving forward. The Council of Social Movements is also activated, and we congratulate the holding of the Regional Caribbean Seminary to implement the fourth decade to eradicate colonialism, and the Festival of Drums to defend our identity within ALBA. And in conclusion, we call upon the defense of our principles at this moment, and the Executive Secretariat is committed to present during the extraordinary summit commemorating the 20th anniversary of our alliance and the 30th anniversary of the first embrace of Chavez and Fidel. We will bring a number of proposals to adequate our alliance to the fresh challenges of the 21st century and imperialism. And paraphrasing our foreign minister, no matter who is in the White House, what matters is that ALBA-TCP will continue strengthening, will adapt to the new challenges, and will prevail. Thank you very much. Thank you, Secretary. I just want to point out that you have the 2030 agenda applied by the Secretary, and we are supporting this agenda. And we need to follow up on this and move forward in this direction. If there are no opposition to the declaration described by the Secretary General, it is declared approved today. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all foreign ministers. Thank you so much, Mr. General Secretary, and we will meet soon in Havana, Cuba, to commemorate the 20th anniversary of our alliance, and we'll be attending this presidential summit in Havana, where they always welcome us with a lot of love. Thank you very much. We will continue seeing each other in the margins of the meeting. Thank you very much.